The wine glass shattered against the wall, red droplets spraying across the cream wallpaper like arterial blood. My hand still tingled from the force of throwing it, but the satisfaction was worth every crystal shard now littering our dining room floor. I'm Joe, and this is how I finally stopped pretending my marriage wasn't a carefully constructed lie. You're acting like a child, Travis said, his voice dripping with that condescending tone he'd perfected over our 12 years together. This is exactly why you'll never advance beyond Daddy's little project manager. Our son Ollie pressed himself deeper into my father's side, his small fingers clutching Papa Rick's suit jacket. The tension in the room was thick enough to choke on. Better Daddy's project manager than a backstabbing fraud. I spat back, my hands trembling as I gripped the edge of the mahogany dining table. At least I earned my position. Travis's face reddened. Everything was handed to you on a silver platter. You think anyone takes you seriously? They all know you're just Rick's puppet. My father cleared his throat. That's enough, Travis. This is supposed to be a family dinner. Family? Travis laughed, the sound hollow and cruel. Is that what we're calling this arrangement? Your precious daughter can't even handle basic responsibility without running to Daddy for help. The words hit like physical blows, each one carefully aimed at my deepest insecurities. I watched my mother-in-law, Eleanor, close her eyes in quiet disappointment. She'd always been more of a mother to me than Travis's son. Mummy, Ollie's voice was barely a whisper. Why is Daddy being mean? Something inside me snapped. Travis, get out! Excuse me. You heard me. Get out of my father's house. Now. He stood slowly, adjusting his expensive tie with deliberate precision. You know what? I think I will. Better than watching you play victim again. He turned to Eleanor. Coming, Mother. Eleanor remained seated, her hands folded in her lap. I think I'll stay and help clean up. The rejection flickered across Travis's face before his mask of contempt slipped back into place. He strode toward the door, pausing only to deliver one final barb. By the way, that merger you've been working so hard on? Don't bother. My team already closed the deal this morning. The blood drained from my face. That merger had been my project for the past 6 months. There was no way he could have known about it unless... You've been going through my files. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. You've been spying on me. His smile was razor-sharp. Prove it. The door slammed behind him, leaving a vacuum of silence in its wake. I felt my father's hand on my shoulder, heard Eleanor's soft murmur as she led Ollie from the room, but all I could focus on was the burning in my chest. I'm so sorry, sweetheart, my father said quietly. I never thought he'd... Don't. I cut him off, my voice steadier than I felt. This isn't your fault. But I need you to be honest with me, Dad. Did you know? About the merger? He sank into his chair, suddenly looking every one of his 62 years. I got the call this afternoon. I was going to tell you tomorrow. I nodded slowly, pieces clicking into place. The late nights Travis had been working, the mysterious phone calls, the way he'd been needling me about work details that weren't his business. Joe, my father hesitated. What are you going to do? I looked at the wine staining the wall, at the scattered glass glinting like diamonds under the chandelier light. For the first time in years, I felt completely clear-headed. I'm going to destroy him, I said softly, and I'm going to enjoy every second of it. 3 days after the dinner disaster, I found Travis in Ollie's room, sitting on the edge of the race car bed, telling our son stories about how unstable I was becoming. Mummy just gets very angry sometimes, he was saying, stroking Ollie's hair. That's why Daddy has to work so hard to protect us both. My fingers curled into fists, but I forced them to relax. Ollie, sweetheart, time for breakfast. Go wash up. Travis didn't move as our son scampered past me. The moment Ollie was out of earshot, his gentle expression hardened into something uglier. You're late for work again. I'm exactly where I need to be. I stepped into the room, leaving the door open. Stop poisoning our son against me. Poisoning? He laughed, standing up. I'm preparing him for reality. You're becoming unhinged, Joe. First the scene at dinner, now these paranoid accusations about corporate espionage. You stole my merger. I made a better deal. That's business. He straightened his tie, a gesture I'd once found endearing. Maybe if you spent less time playing office with Daddy and more time learning how the real world works. Get out of his room. It's my house too. For now. Something dangerous flickered in his eyes. He stepped closer, using his height to loom over me. Is that a threat? Morning! A cheerful voice cut through the tension. Nate Roberts stood in the hallway, tablet in hand. Sorry to interrupt, but we have that strategy meeting in 20 minutes, Joe. Travis's jaw tightened. Who the hell are you? Nathan Roberts, sir. New project lead under Joe. Nate's smile was professional, but his eyes were sharp. We're restructuring after the merger situation. Your insight would actually be valuable if you have time to consult. I watched Travis process this, saw the calculation behind his eyes. Another time, he said finally. I have my own meetings to attend. He brushed past Nate, bumping his shoulder hard enough to make the tablet wobble. We waited until his footsteps faded down the stairs. You okay? Nate asked quietly. No. I sank onto Ollie's bed. But thanks for the save. How did you know to come up? Eleanor called me. Said you might need backup this morning. He leaned against the door frame. Smart woman, your mother-in-law. Smarter than I was. I stood up, smoothing my skirt. Did you bring the files? Nate nodded, swiping through his tablet. 3 instances of unauthorized access to our servers from Travis's IP address. 2 meetings with our competitors that weren't on any official calendar. And this, he turned the screen toward me, a series of emails to someone named Chloe, discussing insider information about the merger. My stomach clenched. Chloe? Yeah, seems like a student intern at his company. The emails get pretty personal. The room tilted slightly. Of course there was another woman. There was always another woman with Travis. Joe? Nate's voice was gentle. We don't have to do this now. Yes, we do. I straightened my spine. Send everything to my private email. And Nate, thank you for helping with this. Hey, what are work friends for? His smile faded. Just be careful, okay? The way he looked at you just now, I know. I did know. I'd seen that look before, in the early days of our marriage when things first started going wrong. That's why we need to move fast. Downstairs, I could hear Ollie chattering about his breakfast. Travis's voice responded, all warmth and patience now that he had an audience. The perfect father, the perfect husband, the perfect lie. One more thing, Nate said as I headed for the door. Your father wants to meet, says it's important. I nodded, already mentally rearranging my day. Tell him I'll be there at lunch. And Nate, watch your back. Travis isn't going to like you being involved. Let him try something, Nate replied, his usual cheerfulness hardening into something more determined. Some things are worth the risk. I touched the door frame where Travis had marked Ollie's height every birthday, wondering how many other memories in this house were as fake as my marriage. Yes, I said quietly. They are. The coffee shop was exactly the kind of pretentious place Travis would choose. All exposed brick and overpriced lattes. I watched Chloe Turner through the window, noting how young she looked hunched over her MacBook. 19. The same age I was when I first met Travis. My phone buzzed. A text from Nate. You don't have to do this. But I did. I squared my shoulders and pushed through the door, the bell's cheerful jingle at odds with the acid in my stomach. Chloe? She looked up, confusion flickering across her face. Yes? I'm Josephine Mitchell. I sat down across from her, watching recognition dawn in her eyes. Travis's wife. The color drained from her face. I don't... Please don't lie. My voice was steadier than I felt. I've read the emails. Her laptop screen slammed shut. He told me you were separated. Of course he did. I pulled out my phone, found a recent picture of Ollie at his kindergarten graduation. Travis's arm was around my waist, both of us beaming at the camera. This was 3 weeks ago. Tears welled in her eyes. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. He said you were cruel to him, that you were using your father's company to destroy his career. A laugh bubbled up in my throat, bitter as black coffee. Did he also tell you about accessing confidential files? About using company information to sabotage deals? That was business, she whispered. He said everyone does it. And this? I slid my phone closer, showing her a security camera still from outside her apartment building. Travis entering at 2 a.m. Is this business too? The bell jingled again. I didn't need to look up to know who it was. Travis's cologne reached me before his voice did. What the hell are you doing? I turned slowly. Having coffee with your intern. She's lovely. Very young. Chloe, leave. His command was sharp enough to make her flinch. No, I said quietly. Stay. He needs an audience for this part. Travis grabbed my arm, fingers digging in. Outside. Now. Take your hand off me. I met his gaze steadily. Or I'll send these photos to your mother right now. His grip loosened, but his eyes burned with familiar rage. You're making a scene. No, you did that when you decided to fuck a teenager. Chloe made a small wounded sound. Other customers were staring now, phones discreetly raised. You want to do this here? Travis's voice dropped dangerously low. Fine. Tell everyone how you drove me to it. How you chose Daddy's company over your marriage. How you... Travis Mitchell. A man in a sharp suit approached our table. I'm Daniel Cooper, from the Securities and Exchange Commission. We'd like to ask you some questions about recent trading activities. The blood drained from Travis's face. What? Your wife's company filed some interesting documentation this morning. The man smiled thinly. Shall we discuss this somewhere more private? I stood, gathering my purse. I'll leave you to it. Oh, and Travis, Ollie's staying with my father tonight. Don't bother coming home. You vindictive bitch, he snarled. You really think you can... I already have. I turned to Chloe, who sat frozen in horror. He deletes his texts every night at 11, changes his email password weekly, and he'll never admit to anyone that he's wrong. I softened my voice. You deserve better than being someone's secret. Outside, the autumn air felt clean in my lungs. Nate was waiting by my car, concern etched on his face. You okay? I watched through the window as Travis gestured angrily at the SEC agent, his perfect facade crumbling. I will be. Your father's worried. Says you're taking too many risks. Tell him the risk was staying silent. I unlocked the car, then paused. Nate, thank you for helping me find the trading records. He shrugged. Some men need to learn they can't take whatever they want. Through the window, I saw Chloe gather her things and hurry out, tears streaming down her face. Part of me wanted to comfort her, but a larger part recognized that some lessons have to be learned alone. Come on, I said to Nate. We have a company to rebuild. The SEC investigation hit the news cycles faster than I expected. I watched my father's face as he read the headlines scrolling across his office monitor. Tech executive under investigation for industrial espionage. They're calling it a witch hunt, Dad said, rubbing his temples. Travis's company is claiming we fabricated evidence to destroy their reputation. I traced the rim of my coffee cup, now cold and untouched. We both know that's not true. Truth isn't always enough, Joe. He turned the monitor off, but the reflection in the window showed his worried expression. Travis's lawyers are good. They're painting you as a vindictive wife using Daddy's influence for revenge. Let them. The words came out sharper than intended. We have proof. We have complications. He slid a folder across his desk. Travis filed for emergency custody of Ollie this morning. The room tilted. I grabbed the edge of the desk, steadying myself. He what? Claims you're unstable, using company resources for personal vendettas, creating a hostile environment for Ollie. Dad's voice softened. There's more. Eleanor came to see me earlier. Of course she had. I'd been avoiding her calls since the coffee shop confrontation. What did she want? To warn us. Apparently, Travis has been recording your conversations. building a case for months. The coffee cup slipped from my fingers, shattering on the floor. Dark liquid spread across the carpet like blood. A knock at the door made us both jump. Nate stood there, his usually cheerful face grim. "Sorry to interrupt, but you need to see this." He held up his phone. A video played, me at the coffee shop confronting Chloe. The angle was awkward, clearly shot by another customer, but the audio was clear. "Tell everyone how you drove me to it." "It's trending," Nate said quietly. "Travis's PR team is spinning it as workplace harassment. They're saying you targeted a young intern to discredit their company." I watched myself on the tiny screen, saw how my controlled anger could be interpreted as threatening, saw how easily the truth could be twisted. "Joe," my father's voice cut through the rising panic, "whatever you're thinking, I need to see Ollie." I grabbed my purse, already moving toward the door. "He gets scared when his routine changes. He'll want his blue blanket for nap time." "Joe, stop." Dad caught my arm. "Travis's lawyers filed a temporary restraining order. You can't go near the house." The world narrowed to a single point of pain. "He's my son." "And we'll fight this," Nate said firmly. "But right now, you need to be smart. One wrong move and Travis gets everything he wants." I yanked free from my father's grip, pacing the office like a caged animal. "So I'm supposed to what? Sit here while he turns my son against me? While he destroys everything I've built? No." Dad's voice had that steel edge I remembered from childhood crises. "You're supposed to trust us. Eleanor's already documenting Travis's manipulation of Ollie. Nate's tech team is tracing the source of those recordings, but you need to give us time." "Time?" I laughed, the sound brittle. "While Travis plays the victim, while Ollie thinks I abandoned him, while we build a case that can't be dismissed as revenge," Nate corrected. "You taught me that, Joe. Sometimes winning means playing the long game." I stared out the window at the city below, at all the people going about their normal lives, while mine imploded. Somewhere out there, my 5-year-old was wondering why his mother hadn't come home. "Okay." I turned back to them, something cold and hard crystallizing in my chest. "You want the long game? Let's play. But this time, we're changing the rules." Dad and Nate exchanged worried looks, but I was already pulling out my phone, scrolling through contacts until I found the number I needed. "Who are you calling?" Dad asked. "Someone who knows all about Travis's games." I hit dial, waiting as it rang. "Hello, Eleanor. We need to talk about your son." Eleanor's hands trembled as she slid the USB drive across the cafe table. "He'll know it was me." "No, he won't." I pocketed the drive, fighting the urge to check its contents immediately. "Travis never thought you'd betray him." "Like he betrayed me?" Her laugh was hollow. "Did you know he emptied my retirement account last year? Said it was for a business investment." She twisted her wedding ring, the one Travis's father had given her 30 years ago. I believed him. My phone buzzed. A text from Nate. "Target moving, ETA 10 mins." "He's coming," I told Eleanor. "Remember the plan." She nodded, dabbing at her eyes. "Just promise me something, Joe. When this is over, let Ollie know his grandmother tried to fix things." The cafe door chimed. Travis strode in, all polished confidence until he spotted me sitting with his mother. His steps faltered. "What's going on here? Can't I have coffee with my daughter-in-law?" Eleanor's voice was perfectly pitched, worried, slightly defensive. "Not when there's a restraining order." Travis turned to me, jaw clenched. "Leave, now." "Actually," I checked my watch, "I have 4 minutes before I'm in violation. Plenty of time for you to explain to your mother about Chloe's abortion." The color drained from his face. Eleanor gasped. "Mother, she's lying. The clinic records say otherwise." I stood slowly. "Along with the wire transfers from your mother's retirement account. Tell me, Travis, does your PR team have a spin for that?" His hand shot out, grabbing my wrist. "You vindictive." "Travis Mitchell?" A woman in a sharp suit approached our table. "I'm Detective Sarah Chen. We'd like to ask you some questions about certain financial transactions." Behind her, 2 uniformed officers positioned themselves near the exits. Through the window, I saw Nate giving a thumbs up from his car. "This is harassment," Travis snarled, but his grip loosened. "No," Eleanor said quietly. "This is karma." She pulled out her phone, showing him the screen. A recording was playing, his voice clear as he detailed plans to embezzle company funds. "Mother." "I'm sorry, baby." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "But I can't watch you destroy more lives." Travis lunged for the phone. The officers moved faster, catching his arms as Detective Chen read him his rights. The cafe had gone silent, phones recording everything. "You'll regret this," he spat at me as they led him away. "I'll make sure Ollie knows exactly what kind of mother you are." "No," I replied calmly. "He'll know what kind of father you are. The court-appointed guardian is reviewing your recordings right now, the ones where you coached him to lie about me." His face contorted with rage, but the officers were already escorting him out. Through the window, I watched them guide him into a patrol car, his perfect suit wrinkled, his carefully constructed world crumbling. Eleanor's sob broke the silence. I reached for her hand, but she pulled away. "I did the right thing," she whispered, more to herself than to me. "I did the right thing." My phone buzzed again. A message from Dad. "Ollie's guardian called. You can see him tomorrow." Relief made my knees weak. I sank back into my chair, the weight of the past weeks pressing down on me. "Was it worth it?" Eleanor asked suddenly. "All this pain, this destruction, was revenge worth it?" I thought about Ollie, about the look in Travis's eyes when he realized his own mother had turned against him, about the years I'd spent doubting myself. "It wasn't about revenge," I said finally. "It was about truth. Sometimes they just look the same." Outside, rain began to fall, washing away the last traces of Travis's fingerprints on the cafe window. Tomorrow, I would hold my son again. Tomorrow, we would begin rebuilding. But today, sitting across from the woman who had sacrificed everything to help me, I understood that victory and loss were sometimes the same thing too. The holding cell smelled like despair and cheap disinfectant. I pressed my forehead against the cold concrete wall, trying to process how everything had gone so catastrophically wrong. "Your father's lawyer is on his way," Nate said through the bars. "Just hang tight." "Did they find Ollie?" His hesitation told me everything. After Travis's arrest, our son had vanished, along with a significant portion of Eleanor's remaining savings and Travis's emergency passport. "He couldn't have gotten far," Nate offered. "Every airport's been notified." "He's not going to airports." My voice sounded hollow even to me. "He's punishing me, making sure I feel exactly what he felt when we took everything from him." Detective Chen appeared behind Nate, her expression grim. "Mrs. Mitchell, we need to discuss the new evidence that surfaced." They led me to an interview room where a laptop waited. The video playing showed me in Eleanor's kitchen 2 weeks ago, carefully going through Travis's personal files. "That's breaking and entering," Chen said quietly. "Combined with the harassment charges from Miss Turner and the corporate espionage allegations, those files proved he was stealing. They were obtained illegally." She closed the laptop. "Your husband's legal team is pushing for maximum charges. They're painting you as obsessed, vindictive, willing to break any law to destroy him. And Ollie, if we find him with your husband, given these circumstances," she let the implications hang in the air. My father burst into the room, followed by our family lawyer. "Joe, don't say another word," but I barely heard them. My phone had just lit up with a message from an unknown number. A photo of Ollie, sleeping on what looked like a boat cabin bed. Below it, Travis's words, "You took my life, seems fair I take yours." "He's on his father's boat," I whispered, "the one in Marina del Rey." "Joe," my father warned, "let the police handle this, like they handled the restraining order, the custody hearing." I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. Every time we've done things the right way, he's been 3 steps ahead. "Mrs. Mitchell," Chen interjected, "if you leave now—" "You'll what? Arrest me again?" I laughed, the sound brittle. "My son is with a man who's facing criminal charges, who's already proven he'll do anything for revenge. Every minute we wait, Nate stepped forward. I'll drive. Both of you will stay right here, my father commanded. Joe, think about what you're risking. I looked at him, really looked at him, seeing for the first time how old he'd grown during this ordeal. I'm sorry, Dad, but I stopped playing by the rules the moment he involved Ollie. The next few moments were chaos. I remember Nate creating a distraction, remember running through the station, remember the blast of cold air as I hit the parking lot. Detective Chen's shouts faded behind me as I hot-wired Travis's old car, the one thing he'd left in our garage. My phone buzzed again. Another photo. Ollie awake now, looking confused and scared. Travis's message below. Better hurry. Tide's going out. The engine roared to life. In the rearview mirror, I saw police vehicles starting to move. My father stood on the steps, phone to his ear, probably calling in every favor he had to stop me. But all I could see was Ollie's face. All I could think about was Travis's words at the cafe. I'll make sure Ollie knows exactly what kind of mother you are. Well, he was about to find out. Because the woman driving through red lights, the one with police sirens wailing behind her, the one who'd finally stopped caring about consequences, that woman wasn't just a mother. She was someone with nothing left to lose. I pressed the accelerator harder, watching the speedometer climb. 3 hours until high tide. 2 hours to Marina del Rey in good traffic. And somewhere ahead, my son, and the man who thought he could take him from me. I'm coming, baby, I whispered, swerving around a slow-moving truck. Mommy's coming. Behind me, the sirens grew louder, but I didn't slow down. Sometimes, I realized, you have to become the very thing you're fighting against to protect what matters most. The marina's security lights cast long shadows across the empty docks. Travis's boat, the Sweet Revenge, a name that now felt like a twisted joke, rocked gently in its berth. No lights on, but I knew they were there. A mother always knows. My phone buzzed. Detective Chen. We're 5 minutes out. Do not approach the boat. I switched the phone off and moved closer, keeping to the shadows. The cabin door was ajar, inviting me in. Travis had always loved his little traps. Daddy? Ollie's voice drifted up from below deck. I want Mommy. Mommy's coming, sport. Travis's voice was gentle, the way it used to be before everything shattered. In fact, she should be here any second now. I stepped onto the boat, the deck creaking beneath my feet. No point in stealth now. You're late, Travis called up. Traffic on the 405. Where is he? Safe, which is more than I can say for your future. His laugh echoed from below. Come down. Let's talk about custody arrangements. The cabin stairs felt endless. Travis sat at the small table, Ollie curled up against him, clutching his blue blanket. My son's eyes lit up when he saw me, but Travis's arm tightened around him. Careful now, Travis warned. We wouldn't want any sudden movements to rock the boat. That's when I saw it, the small device in his free hand, wires trailing down through a hole in the floor. The boat's bilge pump controls, modified. One push, he said softly, and the pump reverses. How long do you think it takes a boat this size to sink? You'd kill your own son? I'd save him, be the hero who rescued him from his unstable mother's last desperate act. His smile was razor-sharp. The security cameras will show you boarding alone. Everyone knows how unhinged you've become. Ollie squirmed. Daddy, you're squeezing too tight. I took a step forward. Travis's finger tightened on the device. You know what's funny? He said. I actually loved you once. Before you became Daddy's perfect little successor, before you made me feel small in my own home. You did that yourself. Did I? Who pushed for separate bank accounts? Who insisted on keeping her maiden name professionally? Who turned my own mother against me? You stole her retirement, Travis. I borrowed it. I would have paid it back after the merger. His composure cracked. But you couldn't wait, could you? Had to prove you were smarter, better, more worthy. Worthy of what? The question burst out before I could stop it. What were you trying to prove? Something flickered in his eyes. Pain, maybe, or recognition. For a moment, I saw the man I'd married, drowning in his own insecurities. Then Ollie sneezed. The sound startled Travis. His grip loosened just enough. I lunged forward as Ollie slipped free, running to me. Travis scrambled for the device, but Eleanor emerged from the forward cabin, fire extinguisher in hand. The metal connected with Travis's wrist with a sickening crack. The device clattered to the floor. "Mum!" Travis stared at her in shock. "How?" "I've been here since you arrived," Eleanor said quietly, waiting to see if my son was still in there somewhere. Footsteps thundered above. Detective Chen's voice rang out. "Police! Everyone stay where you are!" Travis looked at his mother, then at me and Ollie. Something broke in his expression. "I just wanted," he whispered, but couldn't finish. "I know," Eleanor said, and there were tears in her eyes, "but wanting isn't enough anymore." As the police led Travis away, I held Ollie close, breathing in his familiar scent. Eleanor stood at the rail, watching her son disappear into a squad car. "Was it worth it?" she asked, echo of our cafe conversation. "All this pain?" I looked at Ollie, safe in my arms, at Travis, finally facing his demons, at Eleanor, who'd lost and saved everything in one night. "Ask me tomorrow," I said softly. "Tonight I just want to take my son home." The marina lights flickered, casting new shadows across the water. Sometimes I realized there are no winners in revenge, only survivors. The courthouse steps felt colder than they should in summer. I watched Travis being led away in handcuffs, his designer suit replaced by prison orange. He didn't look back. "Mommy, can we get ice cream?" Ollie tugged at my hand, already moving past the scene that would haunt my dreams for years. "Sure, baby." I forced a smile. "Let's ask Grandma Eleanor to join us." Eleanor stood apart from the small crowd, clutching her purse like a shield. The trial had aged her a decade, each revelation about Travis's crimes cutting deeper than the last. "I'll pass," she said quietly. "I need some time to—" She gestured vaguely at the courthouse, at the reporters packing up their cameras, at the life she'd known crumbling around her. "I understand." And I did. Victory tasted different when you had to burn down your own house to win. My father waited by his car, Nate beside him reviewing documents on his tablet. The company hadn't stopped running just because our lives had imploded. "The board meeting's in an hour," Nate reminded me. "They'll want to discuss the merger recovery plan." "They can wait." I knelt before Ollie, straightening his little tie. "Today's about ice cream." "And sprinkles?" His eyes lit up, Travis's eyes in a gentler face. "And sprinkles." A familiar figure caught my attention, Chloe Turner, hovering uncertainly near the courthouse entrance. Our eyes met. She started to approach, then stopped, her youth and vulnerability stark in the harsh sunlight. "Go ahead," I told Nate. "I'll catch up." Chloe's hands twisted together as I approached. "I just wanted to say, I'm sorry for everything." "I know." He seemed so... She struggled for words. Perfect, until he wasn't. That's what makes men like Travis dangerous. I watched Ollie climbing into my father's car, already chattering about ice cream flavors. They show you exactly what you want to see. "How do you start over?" The question burst from her like a confession. After someone breaks you apart, I thought about the wine glass shattering against the wall that first night, about Eleanor's trembling hands passing me the USB drive, about Travis's face when his own mother testified against him. "You don't start over," I said finally. "You build something new from the pieces you have left." She nodded, understanding more than her 19 years should allow. As she walked away, I saw a shadow of my younger self, the woman who once believed love meant making yourself smaller. "Ready to go?" my father called. "Almost." I turned to Eleanor, still standing alone. "Ice cream offer still stands. Ollie would love his grandmother there." She hesitated. "Joe, I don't know if I can—" "We're both building something new," I said softly. "Might as well do it together." A ghost of a smile crossed her face. She took one last look at the courthouse doors, then walked toward us. My phone buzzed. A text from Detective Chen. Travis wants to talk. Says it's important. I deleted the message without responding. Some conversations weren't worth having anymore. In the car, Ollie debated ice cream toppings with his grandmother, while my father and Nate discussed quarterly projections. Normal life, piecing itself back together in small moments. "Mommy," Ollie's voice pulled me from my thoughts. "Are you still angry at Daddy?" The question hung in the air. Eleanor's breath caught. My father's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "No, baby." I touched his cheek, seeing futures branching out before us. Some bright, some dark, all uncertain. "I'm not angry anymore, just ready for our next adventure." He beamed, satisfied with the answer only a child could accept so simply. But as we drove toward the ice cream shop, I caught Eleanor's knowing look in the rearview mirror. Sometimes revenge isn't about destroying someone else. Sometimes it's about refusing to let them destroy you. Sprinkles, I decided, making Ollie giggle. Definitely sprinkles, because that's how you build something new. One small, sweet choice at a time.